On the left side, welcome back to my channel, guys. Today's video is going to be really fun because you guys are gonna get to see how I used to do my makeup. In my last video, well, actually not my last video, in my video of my 10-year journey as a makeup artist, I talked to you guys about things that I did back then that I won't do now, and things that I didn't know back then that I do now. So today's video, I am going to be showing you guys on one side how I used to do my makeup, and on the other side how I do my makeup now, and you guys will see the huge difference. As you guys can see, I have absolutely nothing on my skin. I only have moisturizer on. We are going to start off with brows. I used to do my brows so different back then. Looking back at all of my photos, I cringe because I'm like, why did I used to do my makeup like that? Starting off with the left side, we are going to start off with brows. I used to do my brows super thick back then and really defined and dark. I also used to arch my brows a little bit more back then, but back then I used to really love a really defined eyebrow, and I just realized that, well, I didn't just realize, but it made my features a lot stronger. And a lot of people used to always tell me that my brows were really intense, and I was just like, you're just being a hater. But looking back at it now, I'm just like, my brows were really intense. When I would get to the front part, I would kind of shade it in very lightly, and then I would grab my spoolie and I would fade it out. I don't know if you guys remember the fade out look of the front of the brow, where it was super dark here and it would just fade into like a light color. That was like the trend back there, and I used to love doing it. And by all means, you guys do your makeup however you like. This is just how I like to do my makeup now. There's no right or wrong way of doing your makeup. There's just different techniques that work for everyone. Everyone has a preference and everyone likes their makeup a different way, and that's okay. I just, now looking back at the way that I used to do my makeup, is just not how I would do it now. Now, on the right side, we are going to really brush out the brows because I want to make sure that I see where I have those sparse areas, and that's where I want to concentrate filling in my brows. Of course, we are going to start off with the bottom, because usually the bottom is not as even. As you guys can see, I'm going in very lightly, and I'm also bringing it down a little lower, and I'm not going down, I'm just kind of bringing it outward, so it kind of like elongates my eyes. This one is pointed down this way, and this one's a little more on the outer part. I don't have that much hair in here, so what I like to do is I like to fill this in a hair-like motion. So usually how your hair would naturally grow would be upwards. So that's how you want to fill in that area, so it just looks a little bit more natural. And then here I just go the opposite way, so it looks like the hair is also growing down this way. Then I'm just gonna comb my brows down just to see what other sparse areas there are in my brow, and then I just comb it back up. I'm gonna grab my Marc Jacobs concealer. This is in the shade medium 36, and I'm just using a Dose of Colors angle brush, and it also has like a little spoolie in the back. So when I clean up underneath my brow with the concealer, nothing has really changed because I still do the same step. Back then, I used to use two different concealers. I like to use a concealer that is a little lighter than my skin tone, just so it can look a little bit more natural. Once you blend it out, you don't want to be able to see too much of a difference. Okay, so on the left side, I'm going to grab the same concealer that I used for my right, but what I used to do is I used to start it off here with that color just to kind of give it a transition. Don't ask me why I used to do that. So I would bring that in, and then I would grab a really light concealer. I'm using the Jouer Essential High Coverage Concealer in the shade Toast, because usually I would use MAC's Studio Finish Concealer in the shade NW25 here in the inner part, and then NW20 on the outer part. So this is kind of like the closest to that, and then I would just continue following that right underneath. And I made sure that I put a generous amount of that because I want it to really look defined. And then buff that out. And I loved that front fade look, so I would bring the concealer up here. This is the fun part. I would grab a little bit more of the darker concealer that was in here, and I would go on top of my brow to really carve it out. And because I already had a little bit of the lighter concealer, I wouldn't go back in. I would just mix both those concealers together, and then I would just follow the shape that I created for myself with the eyebrow pencil. And I would make sure that it had like that little peak up here so it can look really arched. Then I would just buff it into the skin. So as you guys can see, it looks so different. I already have a high arch and I would just enhance that. Now I just make it a little bit more round and a lot softer. All right, so for foundation, I'm gonna be using my Nars Sheer Glow foundation in the shade Syracuse. With my foundation, nothing has really changed, to be honest. I pretty much do the same thing. We're just gonna do one layer of foundation. All right, so for concealer, I'm gonna be using the Essential High Coverage Concealer by Jouer. So on the left side, this is something kind of new that I've changed in the sense of like, I feel like the concealer, I used to always do it kind of like this. I would grab the concealer, bring it down the side of the nose, and then bring it to almost to the temple. And then with this concealer, you do have to be a little careful because it does dry down a lot faster than your normal concealer. And this is the way that I was always taught to do concealer, just to highlight the under eye area. I just want to show you guys, by changing and tweaking a few things, your face shape can also change in a good way. It can make it look a lot more youthful, almost giving you like a surgery type look. So moving on to how I highlight my under eyes now. By the way, I'm using the shade Toast. I don't know if I said that already, but I just wanted to let you guys know what shade I'm using. So now what I like to do is I like to only bring the concealer down the side of my nose and bring it down, and I'm bringing it 1/4 in, and then here I am bringing it all the way up and bringing it down. This is gonna instantly give you a lift. And the reason why you don't want to bring it all the way in, not only are you saving a lot of product, but these are the areas that you naturally want to highlight, and it gives you a very fox eye look. You see how when I'm bringing it down here, it already brings down the product, and then you go in here and you continue to blend that out. It's just going to instantly brighten in the inner part, which is naturally where you want to look highlighted. It helps you look awake. It gives you more of a youthful look opposed to highlighting this whole part of the under eye, and it kind of makes it look a lot more heavier underneath the eyes opposed to just focusing in certain areas that only need highlighted, which is the inner part and the outer part of the cheekbone area. Do you guys see how this eye looks a little bit more round, and this eye, it gives me more of a fox eye look? That's the look that we are trying to go for. Continuing with the under eye, we are going to grab the translucent powder, and we're just gonna pick it up with the sponge. And on the left side, what I used to do is I used to just go in with my translucent powder and just start baking. I would press it all the way in, and I would put a generous amount of translucent powder. So now on the right side, I'm going to pick up a brush. This one is from Bare Minerals. This is the diffused highlight brush, and I'm going to pick up my translucent powder and tap out most of it off. So the brush kind of looks like this. I gotta make sure that there is no creasing. Now I'm going to lightly press in the translucent powder. And the reason why I do this now is because I want to make sure that I seal underneath the eye. It allows the under eye to look a lot more natural. And I don't know if you guys can see, this side looks a lot more cakey and this side looks a lot more smooth. Moving on to blush and bronzer. Believe it or not, when I started doing makeup, I didn't know what bronzer was. So I didn't do bronzer. I know, shocker, I know, it was kind of crazy. So I'm only gonna apply blush on this side. I'm gonna be using the Covergirl TruBlend So Flushed blush in the shade Love Me. We are gonna be using this Alamar Complexion brush and just pop that in the apple of the cheeks. And I used to go really heavy with the blush. Wow. Whatever was left on the brush, I would just kind of throw it back. Moving on to the right side, for bronzer, we're going to be using the Nars Cosmetics Brightening and Bronze Complexion Trio in Medium Tan. We are going to be using the Luxie 522 Tapered Highlighter brush. And I'm going to go in first with this middle color right here. This is a Soltera bronzer. And typically, when I did start using bronzer, I used to do like the number 3 because that's how you're taught to do like your bronzer. But now I like to be very precise when it comes to where I want to apply my bronzer, because that's going to determine the face shape. So I want my face to look almost like I got a facelift, because who doesn't want to look super youthful? I kind of go like this to see where my cheekbone is. I start right here. Usually they say bring the bronzer where this part of the ear is, but now that I know how to manipulate my face with makeup, it makes it so much easier to know the placement of the bronzer. So here I like to just go like this, and it's gonna show me where my cheekbone is, and it's gonna give me like a lifted kind of look, because I'm bringing the bronzer up, I'm not bringing it outwards. And if you bring it outwards, it's going to give you a more wide look. If you bring it up, it's going to kind of give you like that chiseled look, like this. Do you guys see that? So doing like those funny faces definitely help. Also, having a smaller brush is going to make a huge difference, because obviously if you have a fluffier brush, the bronzer is gonna spread a little bit wider, and you wanna just focus the bronzer in a specific area, and it just gives you a little bit more control of the placement of the bronzer. It's almost like you're bringing it up to your temple. The one thing that I still do is obviously bring it into the hairline, so it looks like the sun is naturally hitting you like in this part of the face. And do you guys see the difference? Like my face looks a lot rounder here, because back then I didn't do bronzer and I just did blush, and my face looks a lot more lifted on this side. If I want to chisel this part of my face, I just apply the bronzer here and just bring it up a little bit, because you're gonna add shadow here so it looks like nothing is there. And if you want a more defined contour, you just grab a darker shade. This one is Always Summer, and I'm gonna use the very tip of the brush, and I'm gonna pinch the brush and just place it right underneath the top part of the first bronzer. Do you see how it just defines it a little bit more? And then I'm going to push it upwards. I'm not gonna go down, it's just gonna go up this way. It really sculpts out the face and defines it, and you are able to just manipulate as much as you can with the placement of the bronzer. All right, so I also back then didn't contour my nose, which is such a shocker. I'm gonna pick up my Hoola bronzer, and this is a Morphe brush. It doesn't have a number, it's just like a flat fluffy brush. And I'm gonna kind of brush it on the back of my hand because I feel like I picked up too much. And I am going to follow this hollowness in the inner part of my eye. I don't know if you guys can see it. So I'm just going to follow that. That's going to be my guide to contour my nose. And I'm going in it very lightly. Depending on how snatched you want your nose, you can bring it in a little higher, but I like to keep my contour like right where the bridge of the nose is. And then also I like a button nose, so I also create a little shadow to kind of create that button effect. And now we're gonna pick up the sponge, and to define my nose a little bit more, we are going to go down the side of the nose so it looks a little bit more pinched. So moving on to blush on the right side, we're gonna use the same blush, but the placement is gonna be completely different. So by putting it on the apple of the cheeks, it kind of makes the cheeks look a little bit chubbier, if that makes sense. So we are going to place the blush where we did the bronzer. We are going to place it right up here. And I never really understood the placement of the blush there, because I'm like, don't you want to look like you're blushing at the apple of the cheek? And you can also do that, but I find that this just gives you a more youthful look. So I keep the blush right here, and you can still see it when you smile, but it's mainly like in this part of the face. If you want, you can define your cheekbones a little bit more by just applying a little bit of translucent powder down here. I'm just gonna grab my Bare Minerals brush and then just quickly buff it out, and then do the same thing here. When I go in here, I like to buff the powder upwards to kind of help diffuse any harsh lines around the edges. All right, so I went ahead and I put on a little eyeshadow off camera. I'm gonna bring you guys in a little closer because I'm gonna show you guys how I used to do my eyeliner in comparison to how I do it now. So I always loved using liquid liners for my eyeliner just because I just felt like they glide on a lot smoother and they're less messy. So we are going to be using the Nars Cosmetics liquid eyeliner. Back then, I used to use the e.l.f. liquid liner that was like $1. I think it's like $2 now, but it's still affordable. But this one, I love it because it's really, really matte. So the way that I used to do my eyeliner before would kind of make my eye look a little droopy, opposed to it lifting my eye. So you just go in with your eyeliner. Once I would get to the outer corner, I would continue it out and then loop it this way, and then I would connect it from the bottom of the eye and up like this, and then I would bring it in. So I'm essentially elongating my eye, but I'm making it, ooh, that looks horrible. I'm gonna clean that up. But I would elongate my eye. It almost would give me a hooded eye look, and I don't have hooded eyes. And then I would just continue with the inner part. You can use the concealer that you used underneath your eyebrows and an angle brush, and we're just going to clean that up, and then we're just going to press it in. And the reason why I like to press it in is because it doesn't interrupt your foundation. And then you're just going to grab a little bit of translucent powder and just pat that in. So for my right eye, instead of starting like in the center, I kind of start my guide because I want to make sure that instead of making my eye look droopy, I want to lift it up and give me a cat eye. So I don't start it at the bottom. I start at the very top of where the end of my outer corner is. And then I start by making the line going up like this. And I try to make it as thin as possible. And then I bring it down and I connect it. And that is going to give you an eye lift without surgery. And then you just fill it in. If you have really small eyes and you want to make your eyes appear a lot larger, what you can do is you can end the eyeliner right there, so it's going to open up your eyes instead of making them look smaller, because by adding darker in the inner corner, it's going to close your eyes. So you can definitely leave it like this, and then we're just going to make it a little thicker, and we are going to elongate it a little bit more. But again, you want to continue going upwards instead of out. I like to flatten the brush as much as possible to make it super thin, and then I go in to kind of make the edges a little straighter and not so like wiggly, if that makes sense. All right, so I went ahead and I popped on some lashes. I don't know if you guys can see the difference. It's kind of hard for me to like look at the screen and then look into the camera, but this eye is definitely a little bit more elongated, but a little bit more droopy. Even with the lashes, I feel like you can see it. The placement is still the same. This one definitely looks a little bit more catty, which is the look that I'm going for, but I like this eye a lot better because it just makes me look more awake, more youthful, and that's just by tweaking a few things here and there with makeup. It's nothing surgically, it's all with makeup, which is my favorite part. I also lined my waterline on the left side with white, which is something that I used to do so much, and then now I do it with more of a nude color. I find that the white is a little too visible. It's not as natural as the neutral color. It's almost like a skin tone color. So for my right eye, I used my favorite Nars eyeliner in the shade Rue Bonaparte. This is their larger than life eyeliner. And then I used the LA Girl Perfect Precision eyeliner. Back in the day, I used to use Fascinating by MAC like all the time. All right, so moving on to the lip. We're gonna be using my all-time favorite lip liner by Morphe in the shade Sweet Tea. Back in the day, I was so afraid of overlining my lips. Making my lips bigger was like a big no for me, because back in high school I used to always get teased. They used to call me Jay-Z lips, croissant lip. They used to call me all kinds of names. So making my lips smaller was always my goal. I remember going to a MAC class once, and once they were demonstrating how to do lips, I raised my hand and I asked, what is a tip that you can give me to make my lips appear smaller? Everybody turned around and looked at me and was like, why would you want to make your lips smaller? That's like unheard of. But because I used to get teased a lot, that was like something that I wanted to do. I didn't like to have big lips, but now people are paying to have bigger lips, and now I do my lips a lot different, and I like to enhance my lips and make them appear a little bigger. So back in the day, I used to grab my lip liner and I would stay inside my lip like this, so you can still see the definition of my lips, but I was too afraid to go above the lip line. But now this is how I like to line my lips. I go a little bit above just to give my lips a little bit more definition and make them a little bigger, and I do the same at the bottom. So for lipstick, I'm going to be using the Artist Couture Angel Baby lipstick. The application of the lipstick hasn't changed, just the way that I line my lips, and you can already see the difference, how much bigger the right side of my lips look opposed to the left side. We're just gonna top it off with some gloss. I'm just using the Fenty Sweet Mouth Gloss Bomb. All right, you guys, so this is the final look. I know you can see the difference. I know you can, because I can see it. I like the left side of my face. It makes me look a little bit older, especially with the really dramatic eyebrows, the eye looking a little bit more droopy. There's no definition on my face, and then the lips just don't look as full. And with the right side, you have a softer brow, you have a more lifted eye, which is what makes you look a little bit more youthful. And obviously there's a lot more definition on the face, because I was able to manipulate the shape of my face with the bronzer, and the lips are a lot fuller, so outlining the lips a little bit more just gave me that completed look. Let me know if this video was super helpful for you guys and what you guys think. Not every single step that I'm gonna do is going to work for everyone. This is just what I feel comfortable with and what I like now opposed to what I used to like back then. If you're willing to try it and see how you like it, go ahead and try it and let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if you agree with me. If you don't agree with me, that is completely fine. And I definitely feel like it has taken a few years off of me. I just turned 35, and I feel like this side makes me look like I'm 35. This side makes me look like at least 30, at least. I want to say 25, but that's kind of pushing it. But again, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.